Popcorn's at the ready because I have part 2 right here for you. Let's get to it. June was grinning. She looked at Gary, who looked dumbfounded. Do my uncle and dad break each other's balls all the time? I mentioned her language. I'm a big girl, Daddy. I use worse. Anyway, Gary, Uncle Bob and Daddy have each other's backs. Their banter means nothing. You can tell it is serious when the banter ends. I'll bet their next conversation is straight up. After we ate, they followed me to my brother's house and then went on their way. My brother and I had a series of long talks for most of the rest of the weekend. His wife Evelyn listened to a few at the beginning, and after muttering a few comments like a conceited, self-serving bitch, she left us alone. I wondered when I'd hear from Donna next. She had not called me when she checked her bank balance. About 5 o'clock on Sunday my phone rang. Hello, Donna. I said in as level a voice as I could muster. What the hell have you done? As she almost yelled. Oh, where the hell is Doris' car? I thought you were just pissed and canceled the credit cards trying to stop me having a good time. You mean the piece of crap car that was blocking access to my garage? I asked. I had it towed. I'm not sure how late they stay open on a Sunday, but their business card is on the kitchen table. You'll have to pay the towing and the impound fee to get it back though. I hope you saved enough of your party money for that. Is your little male ego so bruised you had to take it out on my sister? Donna gritted. I heard Doris yelling in the background, calling me all kind of names. I told you we'd talk when I got home and I'd tell you how things are gonna be. You are gonna pay for your little temper tantrum. You know it will be our money that gets the car back, not hers. First of all, your comment about my little male ego just cost you. I hate that. I said, seething. Secondly, I have no interest in hearing you dictate how things are gonna be. You made it clear you were going out to slut around and you found a better man, so as far as I am concerned, he can have you. Did you seriously think I'd stick around to listen to you dictate how things would be? If you look around, I cleared a lot of my personal stuff out of the house. I told you yesterday I was separating my life from yours. I'll just take my little bruised ego and leave you to it. So if you have something productive to offer, say it or hang up. I heard her mutter, this is not how it was supposed to go. In the background I could hear Doris say, tell the wimp to fuck off. He'll come crawling back before long. I hung up. Surprisingly, I was not upset. I felt cold inside, totally frosty. I realized I might mourn the death of my marriage later, but right now I did not really care. But I certainly wanted to get some payback. I halfway expected her to call me back to curse at me after she looked around the house, but did not hear another word from either Donna or Doris until late the next day. I'd taken the day off to talk to our corporate attorney, who quickly directed me to a divorce lawyer. I was given the usually unhappy news of what happens in a divorce. I'd lose half of everything. Fortunately for me, my trust protected my business interests. Donna made about the same income as I did, so alimony was not going to be an issue. We had a little in personal investments, but only about $20,000. We'd pretty much spend our extra income sending June to school and bailing Doris out of her financial messes. Our main asset was our house, which I'd be happy to sell or let Donna buy me out, which I knew she could not without a big loan. We had no dependent children. Doris did not count as a dependent. I made plans to have Donna served the following afternoon. I honestly thought I would not hear a peep out of Donna until after she was served, and then it would be vindictive screaming. About 4 in the afternoon, she called me. I'd like to talk, she offered quietly. So talk, I told her. Not now. I'm still at work. Can you come home and we can talk in private, she said. Nope. I answered succinctly. You can close your office door and talk now, or call me back after you leave. But as far as my driving all the way to the house for 2 minutes or less of discussion, it is not worth the effort. What do you mean 2 minutes? That is all our marriage is worth to you? She asked, perplexed and starting to get angry. No, it is worth far more than that. I answered. The time for a serious discussion was really before you started slutting around. I heard her take a deep breath, but I cut her off. but I am still willing to talk. I'd like to hear what you have to say. But I know your sister is going to show up and start running her mouth, and I will walk out the door. Or she will get stupid and try to block my car in. That will result on one of two things. One, I have it towed again. Or, I break her window to get access and release her emergency brake so I can push it out of the way. That will get me arrested. She said she'd make sure her sister did not show up. The other thing that will shorten our discussion is you start saying things I have no interest in hearing. As soon as you do, I will leave. So no, it is not worth the cost of gasoline nor my time to drive home. Same thing goes for a restaurant or some public place. You call me back when you are in a position to talk. I hung up. I did not have to wait but 15 minutes for her to call me back. I'd watched my phone. We had our phones linked by a Find Your Phone app, so I knew she was still in her office. I wondered if she'd spent the past minutes thinking about her approach or if she'd been conferring with her sister. I didn't care one way or the other. Hello. I can talk now, she announced when I answered. Okay, a few ground rules, I said. Her surprised ground rules had me grin. Yeah, first, I don't want you to waste my time with explanations of how this guy you cheated on me with is so much more exciting than me. That will just piss me off. He might have a bigger cock and I don't really care. You never complained before, nor did you suggest something more adventurous to try. Although I'm not sure what that might be. We used to experiment with various things. Don't tell me he paid you compliments and told you how beautiful you are. I did that. Besides, of course, he would butter you up. That's what guys do when they want in your pants. I heard another gasp, or perhaps a sigh, that told me she'd indeed intended to say that I also don't you to start to tell me this was only sex and it is me you really love. Another sigh. We've used toys together and I know you use them in private, and of course I was never jealous of them. So don't think to tell me this guy was no more than a dildo. There was a human attached. This time I heard a whimper. I suspected I was busting every one of her arguments before she made them. And I certainly do not want to hear you threaten that if I don't fall in line with your new world order, your new stud will take care of you in a manner in which you deserve. That was Doris's dumbass line before you left. If your boy toy was so rich, why did you have to use your credit cards the other morning or go to an ATM machine for money? Just because the asshole could afford a room at the Marriott and drives a Corvette does not mean he is rich. I cringed. I doubted myself and revealed I knew too much. I wondered if she caught on. She had. How did you know he drives a vet? She asked. And the Mari. I cut her off by saying, and last but certainly not least, don't tell me this was your first and only time cheating. The way he greeted both you and your sister told me he knew both of you well. This was certainly not your first time with him. I don't care if this was your second or your 100th time. But both of you fucked him before. You followed us? She cried. I'm sure you did not hire a private investigator. You had no clue before Friday evening. We were so careful. I almost laughed. She totally forgot about the asshole's car. I did not want that getting back to him. Not yet. So, hearing all those rules of what I do not want to hear, what do you have to say? She began to cry. I let her wail and sipped my beer. Yes, I was coldly sitting, drinking a beer while my marriage disintegrated. We have 24 years together. Donna cried. Isn't that worth saving? I tried very hard not to laugh. It was not a happy or amused laugh at all. It was one of incredulity. You apparently didn't think it was worth thinking about that when you started cheating. Another gasp. I interrupted her. Tell me, did the asshole know you were married? I asked. She whimpered, I think so. Well, I'm pretty sure. Well, yes, he had to from things he said. He gave me advice. What kind of advice? I asked. He told me if you got upset, to tell you how much a divorce would cost you. You'd lose half of everything you own and even have to pay me alimony. Donna said. This asshole was playing the power card. I thought. He said you would not want anybody to know you were a cuckold, that no man wants that known. He said I'd be in charge and I could do what I want if I played my cards right. Doris told me the same thing. She believes him. She said some of the other women she knows got their husbands to fall in line. They might have shaky marriages but no divorce because it would cost too much. So he knew we were married and didn't care. You certainly knew we are married, and from the sound of it, you don't give a fat rat's ass either. I said, now, I'm gonna ask you this and then you decide if you really have anything to add. What do you really think we are gonna accomplish right now talking? She began to cry. I want us to stay together. To stay married. You really can't get over your fragile fucking male ego, can you? She wailed. Without a word, I hung up. I mentally kicked myself for reacting so quickly. I wanted to know one more thing. Did the asshole target me? Did he know who I was, or was he just after a little easy pussy? Orville Wendell Fontenot III, or Trey as he was known around the company, sauntered into Bob's office just after lunch the following day, Tuesday. Yes, Mr. Jacobs, you wanted to see me? He asked casually. He was surprised to see me sitting to one side but did not unduly react. He apparently did not realize who I was. I'm sure he knew my identity, but did not connect me to the bitch he'd been screwing all weekend. Trey Fontenot was one of our liaisons and had been with the company for about a year. What some companies called a public opinion official. He was a salesman of sorts. His job was to make us look good with the press and smooth over any problems with our clients. Not quite a salesman, he interacted with our clients on a frequent basis. His job was easy. We had few if any problems with our public image. His boss dealt mainly with press releases about our developments and arranged showings and the occasional tour through our facilities. Fontenot's main job was to promote our image. He might coordinate with our clients on occasion so everybody was on the same sheet of music, publicity-wise. I'd considered it a total waste of effort and money. To my way of thinking, we only needed to stand on our own merits. Now Bob agreed. At least he agreed that continuing to pay Fontenot a salary was a waste of money. Tell me, you were out of the office Friday? Bob said. What did you do? And how did you spend the weekend? Trey looked a little confused. I spent Friday with a man from Global Medical, Larry Atwell. He came over from New Orleans. We coordinated our activities on our publicity. And the rest of the weekend I was in the company of a couple ladies. Trey stammered. Can I ask why you are asking? Yeah, I heard you were at the Marriott where you entertained them. I assume Atwell was still with you. I hope it was not on the company dime and these women were not prostitutes. Bob stated. No, sir. We did meet up with the women for a good time, but it was Friday evening after our meeting. Those women were not paid. Bob asked him what kind of good time. Well, sir, it is not really any of your business, as it does not concern the company, but I'll tell you it is a little hobby of mine to seduce willing women and have sex. I take them out, wine and dine them, and then entice them into my bed for a bit of fun. These were two women I knew. It is all totally consensual. How did this come to your attention? Bob shook his head. Suffice it to say it has. I want to hear the story. Sit down. Trey began to grin as he relaxed. He apparently thought he was not in trouble and was actually a little proud of his conquests. Oh well, I am single now. I got divorced 2 years ago because I like to play the field. I enjoy seducing women. I meet them, buy them a few drinks, dance a bit, and if I can, get them to join me in bed. I'm pretty good at it. And it is fun. Nobody gets hurt. The bastard was 32 and good-looking. I always thought he was a smarmy bastard. He seemed to carry a permanent smirk on his face. Nobody? Bob asked. How many of the ladies you meet are married? Don't they care about their marriages? Trey's grin broadened. Oh, you have that backwards. Most of the women I go after are married. They make the best targets. It reduces the risk of permanent involvement. We just provide a little entertainment for each other. They are of two types. One type wants a little bit of strange cock on the side, a dirty little secret bit of fun they can hide from their husband. It makes them feel alive, sexy, and maybe a little naughty. Some of them are real sluts and want to let their hair down and go wild. They'll do things for me they say they never do for their husbands or haven't since they were dating. I'll fuck their asses, get them to shave their pussies, and tell their husbands they did it for them. Some will get their husband to lick their pussies after I come in them. Many will record that on her phone to show me later just for the extra kick. We both get off on it. Well, the hubby doesn't know, of course. He just thinks he is getting to fuck his wife who came home from partying all hot and bothered. The second type is a little more involved but super fun to work. They are the wives looking to upgrade. Hubby can't get them off, so they need a better lover. Some want to trade up financially and are actually looking to leave their husband for a new guy with more money. I drive that red Corvette for a reason. That thing is a pussy magnet. I even have a few different personas. I used to be Lance Sutherland. There is a retail lumber store up in Shreveport of that name. I tell women I am down here to buy lumber to be processed for my company to sell. Bob asked him if women really fall for that line. Trey laughed. Most don't even question it. At the bars I am known as Lance, no last name. But I use a credit card in that name in case I am addressed that way in a hotel or restaurant. I pay the cards off and the women are none the wiser. Lately, I've been Lance Parker, oil executive. I made up fake documents and leave them on the table in the hotel room. I let the women see them and think they look important before I scoop them up with my laptop and put them in a briefcase before we party. The women fucking suck while their asshole hubbies sit at home and jerk off waiting for them to come home. A few of the women even think I am gonna take them away to a better life if their husbands throw them out. I'm guessing even if the husbands find out, most of the husbands forgive their wives after a while. At least I haven't had any husbands come after me. I have a third set of wives who want to get their cuck hubbies to toe the line. You know, go along and obey the wife or get half his shit taken away. I give those wives all kinds of advice on what to do. They let the cuck know they are messing around and dare him to make waves. Funny thing is the law and the courts are on the wife's side. The husband gets raked over the coals and the wife gets the cream. Like the old Jerry Reed song, she got the gold mine and I got the shaft. Bob asked him how he meets the women. I hang out at a couple clubs where women go to be picked up. It is easy. I am known as a nice guy who can afford a room at the Marriott and not just a quick romp in the back seat. Or a blowjob and fondle out behind the club. I have a bit of a reputation. I try to be a class act. Some of the women actually introduce me to others. The women from this weekend is one example. They are sisters, really pretty. They are a little over 40 and both totally hot. I met and screwed one and she introduced me to her sister. I've done them both a few times, so when Larry came to town, I invited them to join us at the Marriott for a weekend of hot, no-holds-barred sex. They jumped at it. Women love to get belanced. His smirk turned into a wide grin. How can you afford the Marriott every weekend? Bob asked. That has to be expensive. That's the beauty of the plan. Trey offered, grinning, almost excited to tell the story. My cousin is the night manager. He'll block me a room early and then after midnight, he'll change it back in the computer to say it was unoccupied. I don't pay a nickel. The cleaning staff show up, see the room needs to be made up, so they clean it. Nobody is any the wiser. This weekend I got a suite, 2 bedrooms and a living area, all for free. The women thought I am a high roller or rich. Larry and I both screwed both the sluts in every hole and they loved it. My cousin even came up after he got off shift and they double-teamed him as his tip. Trey said. He did not see me ball my hands into fists. I so wanted to stand up and punch him in the throat and then cut his balls off. They did all that and you didn't have to pay them? Bob asked, seemingly enthralled. Did you use drugs or alcohol, or are they just sluts? No drugs at all. Well, no illegal drugs. Both Larry and I used Viagra to keep our cocks up and hard. But even then, after a while, you get tired and have to rest. No other drugs at all, I can take a drug test at any time. I've given women a little X in the past, but it isn't worth the risk, and these women were wild. The only thing they would not do was girl on girl. Both said they couldn't do anything with her sister. And you can bet Larry and I tried hard to convince them otherwise. That would be kinky. At least Donna and Doris have a few morals. I thought. Well, I have a couple concerns about this, interesting as it is. Bob said. First, have you ever pursued any of the women here at NSYNC? No, sir. Trey said. My daddy taught me early in life to never shit where I eat. I know we have hard non-fraternization rules. Okay, so you do this picking up women here in town. Do you do anything of the sort when you go out of town? Bob asked. I mean, you provided entertainment for Larry Atwell over here. Does he reciprocate and do something similar in return when you go there? That leads me to ask if any of the other company reps we do business with do the same. I don't want this to blow back on us. Only Larry. Trey said. A Global has a condo for visiting dignitaries, so we pick up women over there and use that place. So you do this pick up women routine both here and there. One other concern is, will your expense account pass muster if we look carefully? Bob asked. All of a sudden, Orville Fontenot aka Trey aka Lance got very nervous. Bob smiled and I saw him subtly push a button on his desk. Now we are going to take a very hard look at your expense account records, and if we find you have abused the system, we will do one or both of the following. We will prosecute you for theft or embezzlement or whatever the legal beagles call it. But in any event, we will take back the money from your final paycheck. Final paycheck? Trey croaked. You are firing me? Why? For taking sluts to a hotel? Yeah, you piece of shit. You see, one of those sluts you fucked this weekend, Donna, is my soon-to-be ex-wife. I said from my side of the room. The other is my sister-in-law. I was gratified that he had no idea. He stared at me for a few brief moments before he muttered. Oh, fuck. A pair of security guards walked into the room as Trey glared at Bob and then me. You can't fire me for fucking your wife, he declared, recouping his position. It was consensual. It's not my problem she wanted to make a cuck out of you. I'll see you both for wrongful termination. You should learn the law. Louisiana is an at-will state. We can fire you for any reason at any time short of something protected by law like discrimination. And screwing your boss's wife certainly does not fall into that category. Now these two gentlemen will escort you to your office to pack your personal effects. I'd advise you to leave before some of the employees learn what a low-life piece of shit you are. Trey switched tactics. Fire me and I'll tell everybody I screwed your wife and made you a cuck. He sneered. Everybody will know she and her sister are total sluts. Please do. I entreated. It will save me the effort. You want to be known as a cuck? He asked incredulously as he paused. I don't want anybody to think I am treating my wife unfairly when I divorce her. I answered. As he was escorted away, he began to yell loudly he was being fired for screwing Jacob's wife. What do you say we knock off a little early, little brother? Bob said with a grin. I have a taste for a beer or three. We have another episode coming up in a couple hours to get ready for. I agreed. I was shaking with the adrenaline rush, but I let Bob guide my ass out the door. I knew his secretary and the security guys had been listening in on the whole conversation. Between that and Trey's loud declarations, by close of business, everybody in the company would be totally aware. I did not care in the slightest. You know, Trey was yelling he screwed Jacob's wife. He didn't say which Jacobs. I laughed. Evelyn is gonna be pissed if people think it is her. Bob groaned. Now I really need the beer, he said. Trey better leave town, Evelyn might find him and castrate him. We laughed as we left. Bob and I were sitting in his living room sipping our beers at 5 o'clock when my phone rang. A showtime, I said. Sitting with us were my daughter June and the young cop Gary. They seemed to be enjoying each other's company and sat side by side on the sofa. I realized they were spending a fair amount of time together when Bob's wife Evelyn invited June to Sunday dinner and she refused, saying she had a date with a man she just met. She'd been too busy to meet with me the evening before that as well. I was not at all surprised when he accompanied her this afternoon, and to be honest, I fully approved. "You sorry piece of shit." Donna's voice boomed over the speaker on my phone. "Do you have any idea how humiliated I was? Do you realize that you might have cost me my promotion and maybe even my job? How could you do that? After all our years together? Well, I hope you don't lose your job." I answered, trying to keep a straight face. "I'd hate to have to pay my unemployed ex-wife's support. But I really do not care if your promotion is dead in the water. You might deserve it. To be honest, I timed your being served to the school board meeting being let out. And I could tell you were deeply humiliated. But as to why I would do it after our years together? Remember when you scoffed at me about how your being a slut and cheating on me bruised my fragile male ego the other day? You even repeated the line when we talked yesterday. Well, I hope your fragile female ego took a beating. It certainly appeared so on the video I saw." "Video?" she screeched. "Of course. My lawyer told me it was not a good idea for me to be present, so I sent somebody to record it." I said, Speaking of video, I am going to send you a video of Orville Wendell Fontenot III, or should I say TURD, giving details about you and Doris being his sluts for the whole weekend." "Oh, I forgot. You don't know him by that name. But he told Bob and me how he impaled you on his lance many times this past weekend in all 3 of your holes." Donna's feeble lance was clearly audible. "Yeah, it seems he works, or rather used to work, at Sink and makes a hobby out of seducing married sluts at local pickup places. He was pretty graphic about how he and his buddy took both you and Doris in all 3 holes and even invited his cousin up to the room to join them for a romp. Now I'd suggest you get an attorney quickly so you can sign and return the divorce papers. I'd hate to send copies of these videos to everybody. Like your parents. They are getting up there in age. I doubt they'd want to hear how both their daughters are 3-hole sluts. I like them, but there are limits as to how much I will spare them. I refuse to let them think of me as the bad guy in our divorce. You and Doris need to make sure of that. Yeah, it is part of my fragile male ego, but I will not be the villain here." Now, I was very fair in the terms I offered. An even split with no alimony. Once you sell the house, you can even keep bailing your sister out financially, well, for a while at least. Until you run out of money. I'd advise you move in together and you control the money. I know she gave you bad advice and introduced you to Orville, or Lance as he wants to be known, but you two might still work things out. Well, if you don't let your fragile egos get in the way." I heard her bawling as we disconnected. I looked around the room as I shrugged. In the video, it took a while for her to stop crying after she was served. I wonder how long it will take her now? I would never know. I had seen the video of her being served before Donna called. She had just come out of her meeting with the school board. They were there to discuss her promotion within the school administration system. On the video, she walked out all smiles, followed by several board members. I suspected it had very gone well in her behalf. That expression turned to a look of consternation when a young process server stepped up and asked her if she was Donna Jacobs. When she confirmed that, she was handed the envelope and heard the declaration she had been served, but because she had repeated that one dumbass phrase, I could not get over her cheating and need for extra male companionship because of my fragile male ego. I went one step further. A male dressed as an old-time town crier hollered across the foyer and announced in a loud voice, "Hear ye! Hear ye! Donna Jacobs, now known as the cheating slut, has been served." Immediately, 2 young women at his side began to toot on their gazoos. I thought at first they were just going to trumpet the announcement, but they began to play a tune that sounded like the song at a wedding, "Here Comes the Bride." Then all 3 began to sing, "Here Comes the Slut," all dressed to rut. Her marriage is over. She's out on her butt. They turned and walked out of the hall playing the tune on their gazoos. The video ended with Donna collapsing to her knees, bawling, nobody noticed the young police officer standing to one side with a cell phone, recording the event. "Daddy, Gary recorded that as a favor for you, but please don't send it out, my daughter," June implored. I begged him not to record it, but he said he'd promised. He said his word is his bond. I told her the only person who might see that video from now on would be her mother unless she fought the divorce. And Donna would certainly get a copy of Fontenot's exit interview video. Epilogue. Donna did not fight the divorce. Her lawyer told her my terms were reasonable and in line with current divorce laws. As expected, she begged to go to counseling to save our marriage. I could tell by her look of anger when she opened her mouth about how I could not get over her actions and forgive her after 20+ years of marriage, that she was about to mention my fragile male ego again. Say it. Say fragile male ego once. If I ever hear you or your sister utter that phrase, I will send all videos out. Especially to your parents. I said. She shut up and stared at me as she cried. She hated having to sell the house we used to own. It wasn't good enough for her until forced to sell. Then it was a palace. I really hoped she didn't give too much of her share of the proceeds to pay her sister's bills. June said she would get involved and try to prevent that. I did not care. Orville, aka Trey aka Lance, found it difficult to get a job remotely similar to the plush job he had with us. Perhaps being charged with theft from abusing his expense account hurt his future chances. Perhaps it was the laughter the HR rep of any prospective company heard when they called to check his employment history. Only a few asked for a subsequent explanation. Trey's legal problems were compounded when the Marriott Hotel Corporation filed charges against him and his cousin for theft of services. I did not even know that was a thing, but a night manager is not authorized to comp rooms, especially for sexual benefits. The corporation made the situation public to set an example for their employees nationwide. I heard the charges were eventually dropped, but only after Orville and his cousin went bankrupt trying to pay their $300 an hour attorney fees for their defense. Global Medical quickly fired and replaced Larry Atwell, Trey's friend. He joined Trey in the ranks of the unemployable. I'm guessing somebody is watching out for his future career like somebody here at home is watching Trey's. Of course, I lost out as well. My 24-year marriage was over. It would take me a while to regain trust in women, but I met several who assured me I could climb back in the saddle without much effort. They would help me. They were there to convince me I was wrong to judge women based on two in my family. On the bright side, I no longer had to contend with a cheating wife and a parasitic sister-in-law. The only two who came out ahead in this whole affair was my daughter June and future son-in-law Gary, former cop, and my present protege. And that's a wrap for this two-part story. Thanks for hanging out with us here today. To catch more awesome narrations, hit that subscribe button, drop a thumbs up, and comment your favorite part. And hey, don't forget to hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we drop the next story.